Give me the bids.
Fun and games.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Do you need to give a preamble
I
here?
do. All right, everybody ready? Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Historic Landmarks Preservation Commission meeting. It is February 1st, 2024, and it is 6:29 p.m. We are in the City Hall Conference Room 1. We will start with just a few notifications. Just please silence your cell phones if you have not already, so we don't interfere. Do not have any guests, but so everybody, I think everybody knows where the bathrooms are. And I believe everybody also knows that in an emergency, we use the stairs and not the elevator, unless you have to and you need help. Ask. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Grunblatt. I chair Historic Landmark Preservation Commission. I'm going to ask the commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, and I'll start down with you, Andrea.
Andrew Putes, I'm the architect of the commission.
I'm Kevin McAvoy, I'm a commission member.
I'm Ethan Dickerman, I'm the Historic Preservation Administrator.
Sue Cahill, Planning Director.
Nancy Morano, commissioner.
Robert Tonner, Commissioner.
Jeannie Edwards.
Is the liaison.
For the committee.
Jeannie is the newly elected alderman for Ward 4.
Welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
Or too bad.
All right. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes from our November meeting? Yes, it's been that long. Are there any amendments or additions that anyone would like to make? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Thank you, Robert. Do I hear a second?
Second, Andrea.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Andrea?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
Robert? I almost called you Sue.
Aye.
Sue.
I also voted in the affirmative. All right. First up is a historic district nomination for St. Joseph Parish. This is not the church property itself.
It does involve the church property.
Okay, plus behind and to the side of the church, there was what was the school. It's a 3-story building. I don't know if anyone here has ever been inside. It's got a gymnasium.
So you have the church here, okay, which is the corner of Main and Wall. This is in the Stockade District now, okay? This will be virtually moved out of this, the proposal, if it goes through, will be taken out of the Stockade District and brought into this new district, which will be based on the religious nature of all of the buildings together. So this building is the rectory building. Behind here are the CCD offices for the school and some other, there's garages back there. This building was the old school. This was the convent. This is on one parcel here. This has been sold off to a private individual, Mr. Blakeman, who is converting this to offices. He's been through the planning. He's been here before with changes to that. And this is the new school over here, which it's over 50 years old. So originally, Heritage Consulting was hired by Mr. Blakeman's, and they were looking to do this building to get some historic tax credits. They consulted with the state. The state said, "Oh, bring in the other church buildings." So they went to the state, and they basically did this section here. They didn't incorporate this. St. Joseph also owns a couple parcels over here but they're parking lot parcels, so they've been left off of this district. There's no construction, no structures on them. There's only one non-contributing building, and it's on this property here. It's a small shed, so it's basically not historic. It's that utilitarian shed. You can't really see it. The colors are kind of off here, but it's in that corner there. So anyway, they went to the state, and the state came back and said, no, we think the entire thing should be brought in to a historic district, based on the religious connection of all of the buildings, their current uses and historic uses. We met, Ethan and I went up and met with Scott Dutton and the father, as well as Phil Sinagra, who is on the consistory up there. And we met with them early this week to talk to them to make sure that, they're on board with all of their buildings being brought in to this designation, and let them understand exactly what it means to them going forward, because obviously they've disposed of one structure, actually two structures, that are going to be part of this. We don't know what their plans were for the old or the new school, or, potentially any other building. And obviously they're not going to sell the church at this point, or the rectory. But they don't have any immediate plans to do anything with disposition of the new school. So we did talk about, potentially what this could, mean for any resale, if it's an added value or not. And they don't have any objection at this point to us incorporating it all into a single historic district. So that's kind of where it's at right now.
So it's going to be a new separate historic district specific to St. Joe's.
Yeah, it is based on the religious criteria.
All right.
For the record, I need to recuse myself from any deliberations because I work for the applicant.
Got it. So noted, thank you.
I get that it's, I understand why, and I think it makes perfect sense. However, I do have a quick, it's not going to determine, so if somebody wants to put housing in one of the buildings, say like a new one.
It
As
would
long as
not
the outside-
prohibit, it would not prohibit. No, it would not prohibit it. Adaptive reuse, that is based on the zoning. So, whatever the zoning would allow could be an adaptive reuse of that structure. We talked about potential demolition, if somebody were to purchase that. I mean, it's a large parcel.
Yeah.
And, if they acquired that along with the adjoining parcels that are currently parking lots, they would have a substantial, almost the entire block, basically. So would they want to demolish? It wouldn't necessarily prohibit them from demolition. The demolition, however, would, come before this commission, for review and consideration. And as the building ages, 20 years from now, people might have a different outlook on, whether or not they want to adaptively reuse the existing structure, or demolition might be more appropriate. They obviously are going to they're going to continue to maintain it. It's not like they're going to let it go, so it wouldn't be demolition by neglect or anything like that. The church will not do that. It's not in their best interest. They are using it. They have classroom space and activities still going on there. They have a basketball program that is in the gymnasium. The church board meets there. They have other community-based events that happen in there. So it's definitely getting used. It's not, just laying low.
My personal favorite is the continuation of the Mighty Pawns chess team.
Do very well.
They are pretty amazing
They are
and
very-
have been amazing for a long time. Any additional questions? Now, are they aware of the process for creation?
Yes.
So this is going to go through Common Council as I
Well,
recall?
this is for state and national.
Oh, so we're more of
Yeah, we were
recommendation.
notified by SHPO that the application was made, and so the SHPO then in turn notifies the city, they notify the mayor as the CEO, and they notify Ethan as Historic Preservation Administrator for, HLPC. So as a CLG community, they were notified as well to provide. So what our recommendation will do will be we will go to the mayor, and the mayor will make a recommendation back on behalf of the city of Kingston.
Fair enough. So it's not going through the local process at this stage
Not
of
at
the
this
game at
point,
all.
no.
All right. Any other questions, comments?
I did a little bit of research on this. I don't think there's anything that would warrant changes. No, I delved into, the same three sources, Sylvester, AT Clearwater, and DeWitt. And I think what I was looking for was the early history, which relates back to Wilbur. Right, that's what I was trying to tie it into, and Maria didn't put a whole lot about this, maybe nothing at all, about St. Joseph's being Wilbur. Apparently they were there twice. They opened up, as an offshoot of St. Mary's.
Yes.
And then about, I don't know,
Yeah.
some years later, they closed that, moved uptown, and then reopened.
Right, they have this, what was it, a school
Yeah.
and down in Wilbur.
Yeah.
Yep,
But that didn't come up, I don't believe that came up during the Wilbur review.
you're right.
So
I don't recall
yeah.
reading that in any of Maria's work.
Yeah, I double checked that to see.
Yeah.
So, I do have those, and I forward them to Ethan if we need them for any purpose later on for local designation and what have you. So,
Thank you. All right. I think first we'll
One
entertain.
other thing.
Oh,
before
there's
we go. There was something that happened when they painted the building.
Beyond the
The
paint.
yellow. The yellow. Does anybody know about the yellow paint?
The church you're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, we all looked at the chips, where everything looked good, and then it was a little brighter than what the chip was.
Yes.
And I think I had a couple of people that came to me and said, well, what's up with that? What are you guys doing over at the Lands Commission? Well, the chip looked, whatever it was, Benjamin Ward, blah, 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 and, looked fine. And when I applied it, it was brighter than, especially when the sun shines on it. It might have a touch of semi-gloss or something in it. I'm not really sure what happened there, but just throwing that out. The yellow is mentioned someplace in the report.
Yeah, I mean, they had actually, I think if I recall correctly, when they came with that paint project, they had scraped some old and they were trying to match an older yellow, because first we thought yellow. But
Yeah.
they had and they had old photographs
Yeah.
as well,
Mhm.
showing it, and the chip really did to us, and I remember we talked about it extensively
Yeah.
because it was a big change, and we thought, well, but then they had the documentation, so we said, go ahead, and then the color went up, and everybody was like, ooh.
Yeah, well, it's,
Yeah,
it's
Just
done.
paint. It's just paint.
Right,
True.
right.
And we outlasted the old Dutch church demand for white, and now they're gray the way they were originally. So sometimes you just have to be patient with an institution. That's our glory. We get to think in the long term. Anything else? All right, I'll entertain a motion that we declare this a type 2 action under seeker.
So
Thank you, Robert. Do I hear a second?
Nettie second.
Thank you, Nettie. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Andrea?
she's refused.
Thank you. Kevin?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
Robert? I also vote aye.
There is no PA.
No,
No.
we're just making that recommendation.
Yes.
Okay.
I knew you were looking for it.
All right, so one down, next up, Article 6, exemptions for historic.
You need to formally make the recommendation. So do you want to formally
Oh.
make a recommendation
Fine.
to endorse?
I want to know the mechanics of this. Do I need to, is it a letter that I need to sign?
No, we'll take care of it.
All right. Simplicity.
So just, you would make a
I
recommendation.
will then
to
move,
endorse the nomination as presented for the St. Joseph Parish Church District to be nominated to the state national.
all right. And I will move that we recommend to the mayor that we support the establishment of a special St. Joseph's Historic District for purposes of the state and national register, and ask that he reach out to SHPO and let them know. Any discussion? Do I hear a second first?
Second?
Thank you, Kevin. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will presume that Andrea is still recused. Kevin?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
Robert? I also vote aye. All right, next up, exemptions for historic properties. This is a carryover or a revitalization now that we have a new code. I didn't notice any big changes from the procedures of the prior version of the city code. Did I miss anything or am I right with that?
No, there's a few in there.
Can you highlight those?
Document, copies for everybody. We can pull it up. Ethan's been pulling it up on the screen.
Okay, that would be.
This was just to refresh everybody's, memory, this had been in place, it started back in, 1998, for 5 years. And then it was, reinstituted in 2004 for another 5 years, okay? It's a 10-year program, so it has since expired, and it was never reactivated. And I think there was a period of time when HLPC was kind of moved from place to place to place, so there was inconsistency in staffing and administration. So now that we're kind of getting things back in order, and we do have a full-time person now on staff, this is something that we see as can be extremely helpful for property owners to obtain some tax incentives that they don't have available to them right now. There are state and national tax credits for properties on those nominations. If you're locally designated, like the Fair Street Historic District, there's really not a lot for you. And this, if this is basically if you make improvements to your property that increase your assessed value, it's the tax relief is on the incremental increase of assessed value. And it's over a 10-year period of time. It starts at 100% and it goes through the years, and ultimately after year 10, you're up to the full 100% paying all of your taxes. But you do get a break for those few years. And we're also looking for this to be, to incorporate not only just the local, but we think that on a local level, we should also support the state and national register properties at the same time. So we're going to include those as well. All right. The other change in this is that we could not find in real property law any basis for the 5 years. We thought that it might have been because they wanted to pilot it, and see how how many people started to really take advantage of it. Ethan has some numbers. I can't, but I think they might be in your staff notes. Did you put the number? I don't see the numbers of properties that had taken advantage. I think it was like maybe there weren't
Minimal.
minimal, right?
Yeah.
I think, we had about, what, 700 properties that would be eligible?
About 700 will be eligible, whereas, but in the past, only a dozen possibly took advantage of it.
And we also think that might be because there's been no one really out there to, say, hey, this is available for you. If you want to, make some improvements on your property, this is an incentive for you to take, to work with. And so anyway, we're looking for this to not have a sunset timeframe associated with it. And, obviously, this will go through council. And if council chooses at some point in the future to cut it off, so be it. But I really think that rather than having to go back every 5 years for this, the number of people that are taking advantage of it right now are minimal. It's not gonna, I think if anything, it's gonna incentivize people to upgrade their properties, and ultimately the value of the properties will go up. And it's a benefit for the entire community. The city is not losing tax dollars per se. They will ultimately gain, so.
And this isn't dependent on residential, it's for any property that's designated historic.
Local,
Right.
yeah.
Local, yeah.
Local, state, and national will be all.
Right, and anyone inside a historic district.
Right. And there's a process that's been already, is already put in place with the assessor. We've spoken with the city assessor. He's in favor of this. He supports it as well. And, the process will not change at all. I mean, it's there, it's in place, and it's just got to be, restored.
All right. I can tell you that one of the reasons it was not popular was there were the periods where we had absolutely no staff. And so, it would be hard for the board to sort of appoint or pick a number or figure out exactly who in the city was the right person for someone to approach. There was one period of about 3 years and another one of a year where there just was very tentative connection to
So,
it.
kind of times have changed too. I mean, there's a lot of, ways that you can easily, put the word out with social media and, website, Kingston, there's
I don't
a lot
know.
of groups, there's a lot of people that have become more active. So there's, that whole education thing will happen.
And that's been a real positive change. We've had people come in asking about tax breaks, especially at the
Right.
And that did not used to happen in the past. So I think it is likely to help support improvements, especially people who are interested in restoring elements of their homes that had disappeared, especially.
And you wouldn't be eligible for this unless you go through a commission review. You have to have that approval first, and then the work has to be completed to the satisfaction of, the building department. They would follow that. So that all has to get done first, so.
Right.
I think it would also be useful at these,
Absolutely. Yeah.
explaining to people, it isn't just like you're gonna have to show up at a meeting with your chips. You might actually
Work for you.
get something from the
Well, you
assessor.
see, I think, like,
Well,
again,
painting
you
probably
gotta
wouldn't
think
do
that
it.
this is only gonna be for
To do it, yeah.
increased assessed value, so painting
Painting
is
would
not
do it.
gonna increase your assessed
Yeah, but if
value.
you're adding-
It would have to be, yeah,
An addition
Replacing
or
it.
alteration. that would-
Right.
Or bringing the porch back the way it
Yeah.
was in
Yeah.
1893.
Right.
What about interior stuff that increases?
I don't think, because we don't oversee interior, I don't know that interior would do that. That's a good question to find out, though. Like, if you have a historic property and you upgraded your bathroom or your kitchen, It certainly would
uncovered
change your
violations.
assessed value, but I'm not sure that that would be eligible for this. Because it would be, would have to be something that is under the purview of this commission, and we don't review interior space
Well, you said
unless it's
state or,
designated interior space.
Right,
well, the other thing too is that, state and national, they do deal with interior, however. So if they can get approval through them, then it would apply, right?
Right.
yeah, say
So-
redoing a
I mean,
staircase.
it's easier to come through us necessarily than to go through SHPO or, NPS, but, it still could apply.
Right.
Is there any retroactive approval or is it from whenever this
No,
comes?
yes, no,
Okay.
it wouldn't be, you wouldn't be eligible until this actually went into effect.
All right, any other questions? I'm not even sure this is a type 2. Because there's no physical manifestation.
No, it's type
It's
2,
type 2?
ministerial. Yeah,
All right, then I will entertain a motion to declare this a type 2 action under seeker.
So,
All right.
okay.
Would you like the second? Kevin, can I give you the second on that?
That's nice, that's very nice.
all right.
Yeah, we're tired on the side of the table.
Time to move the question. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Andrea?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
Robert? I also vote aye. All right, and so we are going to recommend, I will move that we recommend approval to common council.
Yeah, the law with the proposed changes,
The
with minor
proposed-
proposed changes to the council for consideration and adoption.
Agreed. I adopt your language. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nettie. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the roll. Andrea?
Aye.
Kevin?
Aye.
Nettie?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Aye from me as well.
Okay.
It's unanimous. We're ripping through them. Okay. Now, this next one, I get to recuse myself and switch ends of the table.
Okay, just state your reason for recusal on the record, Mark.
I am recusing because I will be presenting on behalf of my congregation, Congregation Emmanuel of the Hudson, at the request of our board president.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Hi.
Hello.
My name's Mark. And I. Yes. All right.
I'm trying to do it.
I'm here representing Congregation Emmanuel of the Hudson Valley, the proud owner of 243 Albany Avenue. Some history about the congregation itself. The original name, as of June 7, 1854, was Emmanuel Church in the town of Kingston. This is because, despite it being a Jewish congregation, the Religious Corporations Law at the time could not conceive of anything but a church. So it became, its legal name was Emmanuel Church in the town of Kingston from 1854 until the board decided to put a vote to the congregation as to a name change. And so on September 19th, 2014, I got to file a certificate of change of name with the county clerk. And it is now legally known as Congregation Emmanuel of the Hudson Valley. Most folks in town have called it Temple Emmanuel for a very, very long time. And if you write a check, they'll still cash it. This is the third, I believe, building of the congregation. Both of the prior ones were down in the Rondout, which was the center of Jewish life in Kingston for a long time. There have been varying waves of Jewish immigration to the city. This first one was mostly from Germany, and Germany at the time was the beginning, it was the hotbed of what's known as the Reform movement in Judaism. And so this congregation is still a member of the Reform congregations here in the U.S. The building itself is about my age, meaning that I'm mid-century modern. It was, the congregation expanded with an influx of refugees after World War II who settled in and around Kingston and started families here. The ornamentation on the front of the building is by Kurt Matzdorf, who escaped from Germany and started the metalsmithing programs at SUNY New Paltz. He is very well regarded in his field, and one of the things I'm happy to see is that too will be protected because he's a master and his work appears elsewhere on the interior. On the inside of the building, you'll find a window from our second building, which was on Beale Street, a large round stained glass window with a Star of David in multi-colors on a whitish background. And that's the one remaining relic of that building that has stayed with our congregation. The congregation itself has hosted lots of civic and political, what's the right word here, debates may be the right word. For many years, our social hall was the meeting spot where Kingston's mayoral candidates would debate each other. We've hosted the interfaith Thanksgiving celebration for probably 50 years. I'm not real sure on that. I know it predates me. The front of the building contains the main sanctuary, the bubble that you see facing Albany Avenue. Since that's eastward facing, that's where the Holy Ark is, as close as we can get to Jerusalem. It's still the indoors. And so that end of the building is where the congregation faces when we are meeting. The outside of the building has this wild honeycomb effect that I have not seen in any other temple in my travels. It's a fascinating play on the Star of David and is pretty unique. They are in poor repair. I suspect one of the reasons the congregation really is looking for a landmark designation is to become eligible for sacred
What
space.
material are they, Mark?
They're concrete.
They're concrete, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I don't know if they're poured or how.
I'm not sure if they're poured, but they are concrete and then they're coated in a ceramic glaze. And at a later date, there was a coating of blue paint that was put over them, likely to, address, some ceramic coming along.
Right, and so I'm not exactly sure what repair will require, but it is an unusual treatment. Inside the honeycomb are large glass windows. And that will be the front of the building. It's also the side from which parishioners enter. There's a smaller chapel space, a kitchen, some administrative offices, and the back of the building is the religious school. I taught 7th and 8th grade there for about 23 years. And that is a 2-story religious school. The the architect, it was unknown to me until I reviewed this. The plans were all hidden in the bowels of the building, and our president and Ethan have reviewed them. Are there specifics about the architecture that adds to the application that I should mention?
Well, the architect was, he was trained, I believe, in the New York City area. He interned with two disciples of Frank Lloyd Wright. He established his own practice in New York City and then Long Island. And most of his noted work is in religious structures, whether it be temples in Long Island or a Methodist church also in Woodstock. I think, as you had mentioned, the particular, what I'm calling a breeze block screen in the document is probably its most significant feature. But throughout the building are materials and designs that are very symbolic, that really speak to its use. But perhaps the architect on the commission and Mark can elaborate further.
No, I think that's a fairly accurate assessment. It certainly seems so to me. Is that, Ethan's got up on the monitor behind you, there's like a larger sort of tessellated screen on the front. Is that still there?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. It was hard to see in some of the other shots, but it's very interesting without the vegetation in front of it. But I mean, you can definitely see some of the sort of Frank Lloyd Wright-esque elements coming through down through the training. But yeah, the block, I would say, was probably I would guess it was a poor thing,
Yeah.
given how accurate and precise that needed to be. And even having the little bits of stained glass in it. I'm surprised none of it settled. That's very impressive to me. With a structure like that, the possibility with which something would slowly over time start to crack and break and just fall in and on itself, especially like that, is kind of, like I said, it's amazing it hasn't. And so it's just a testament to how well it was built and designed. But yeah, a lot of clean lines. It very much speaks to the time and place with which it came from.
Thank you. I can tell you that I was in the building when the ceiling of the sanctuary collapsed.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah, and
but the fact that the screening is still in
yeah,
pretty
in
good shape, I mean, that's,
it definitely does need some touch. I don't know how one is able to touch up something like that. But
that is above my knowledge.
Yeah.
I would be curious to know myself.
But I can tell you it's a gorgeous building and has served the congregation well. And so I'm not sure who's going to be serving as chair for this. I mean, Kevin, are you our next in line?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter, there's, nobody agrees, so, yeah, that would be fine. I'll make maybe we'd be a type 2 action, and then, and you would be looking to endorse it based on, if everybody has the report, or if you put the page up with the conclusion and the significant statement. Because I think that's kind of a critical piece, it's where it's the last portion of that where it says it's worthy of local landmark designation under criteria C. So, I mean, that's kind of, I think, critical to recognize that statement there.
inside outside question. So for locally, we designate this outside or outside and inside?
Outside.
Outside.
If the congregation chooses to get anything on the inside designated, that would apply to state and national designation. Our law is outside zone.
Oh, really? We have locally, we have no.
No, we're
Inside.
exterior.
Though the document does capture the significance of the interior spaces, that will be understood in the future.
Yeah, and I mean, this document will allow, I mean, it has a good basis for moving forward, should the congregation wish to move it forward to state and national nomination.
And I've been asked to explain that.
Yeah.
I think we, Ethan and I went back and forth a bit on this, and prior to the meeting, we had spoken to Mark briefly about the red text in there, and it's mostly on the early history, it's not on the architecture. And that I had researched it and came up and Ethan went back and we followed up on my research and went back and forth on it. So we think we have it down. There was, in the first several drafts, there was a little bit of confusion, at least on my end, between Gudas Hakim on Lucas Avenue and Temple Emmanuel. And I think we cleared that up. And then there was also, Mark explained the naming in the church and how it came into, because of the state law, religious corporation law, which I still think uses the word church quite more often than not.
Well, you have to remember how old the law is.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And the times.
Yeah, that law has a section other. And so somewhere in there, it tells you how many trustees for a Jewish synagogue. So I think they meant synagogues to fall under other.
That sounds rational.
Although Sikh temples have their own category. Let's not even try to figure what they were doing in Albany.
I will warn you that I have had to deal with the Tibetan monastery.
Mm-hmm.
You want confusion, try to explain how they pick a new leader. Well, I wander around and we think the spirit has entered a 2-year-old and they'll take it from there.
Right.
You've gotta, and that's the spiritual leader and they have to sign off on certain documents under the religious corporation law. Not an easy thing to
No,
It was not written with the breadth of religions that we deal with today. It definitely started from kind of Puritan ethic. And has slowly grown over the centuries.
Guess we'll entertain a motion to declare this a type 2 action of the secret.
We repeat, so moved.
And do we have a second?
Second, Robert.
Call roll. Andrea?
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Rennie?
I
And I'll also vote in the affirmative.
recommend and recognize Mark
Yeah.
recusal.
And Mark is recused.
Okay.
And now we'll make the recommendation to the common council on the nomination. Is there a specific wording for that? that
No, I mean,
council
you,
needs?
very similar to the last one, I kind of sketched out, endorse the designation of the congregation of Emmanuel in the Hudson Valley to the city of Kingston as a city of Kingston local landmark. Send endorsement to the common council for their review and consideration and adoption, and recognizing the statement identifying the criteria seen in the National Register of Historic Places as identified.
Should I read that as a motion?
Or you can just say, I'll make that
That's
a
what
motion.
she said.
I'll make Suzanne's reading shall be my motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we're gonna call the roll on this again.
Yeah.
Aye.
Robert?
Aye.
Rennie?
Aye.
And I'm a yes vote on this.
Great.
And Mark.
And Mark is recused.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. May I return?
Your seat of power.
What's up next is a discussion regarding neighborhood meetings in Wilbur. So, Wilbur on the 12th, Pankaki on the 15th.
Right, so everyone recalls, we went through an intensive level survey with AHRS to do studies in both of these neighborhoods. And the result was that very positive, and we want to move with both neighborhoods to a local historic district nomination to start. Ethan is working on applying or obtaining some funding sources that will ultimately engage consultants to move these further to the national and state levels, but at a local level, we feel confident that we can do it. So we are scheduling to have 2 neighborhood meetings. We do need, as part of the process, to have the petitions signed by residents. We would love for members of the commission to attend one or both of these neighborhood meetings. The first one is the 12th, and that's in Wilbur. And that is going to be at Blackbird. And so please come if you can. Nettie is also working with us in the Pankaki neighborhood. She's going to help distribute some of these flyers. Because of the nature of this being a neighborhood meeting, we're really seeking the neighborhood residents to be there. So we're not looking for people from, uptown or Fort Ewan to come to this meeting and sign petitions. We want the people that this district is going to be covering to be at this meeting to say, we want this for our neighborhood. This is our project.
How are the neighbors gonna find out about this meeting?
These flyers have been, Ethan's worked up 2 flyers, one for each neighborhood. They're both on Engage Kingston right now. We're going to be walking these around all of the neighborhoods, and each of the older people for the different ones. Michelle is Wilbur and Steve Shabbat is Pankaki, so they'll be doing it. We're gonna put some flyers in Blackbird Cafe so that people going in to it will have notice of it. We're also gonna give some to the church in Pankaki, so that so when people go there, they'll be able to pick it up. So it's really going to be, in each of the meetings, we had neighborhood meetings back in July. Before the work was actually finalized, to just let people know what was going on, what we were doing. And both meetings were very well attended. They're very representative of both areas, which was great to see. Pankaki, of course, is a much larger district to be nominated. And the church room was filled. I mean, it was filled.
Yeah.
So it was great.
You filled up the concrete church?
In the bottom, in the basement hall, they have a hall down
Oh,
there.
I've never been there, okay.
There were people standing.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was filled. It was great. It was really good to see. And they were, enthusiastic.
Very engaged.
They had questions. Obviously, there was apprehension. But I think we were able to answer those. We had people reach out to us afterwards to talk to us a little bit more about it. And we've gotten a few calls since then. When's this happening? They're excited. They want to, they see the value in protecting their assets, their neighborhood assets. And these are, a lot of this is based on the architectural significance of the neighborhood. And these are tight-knit neighborhoods, really tight-knit. So, they really are engaged. So it's great to see. So we're hoping that the turnouts are just as, positive. But, we obviously want Landmarks Commission members there. It'd be great to, to have your faces, let them see you, who you are, you know, we hold you up, no?
Cream pie here.
But, and we will also, you know, obviously, the tax program will be in effect, but we'll speak to it and, you know, we'll say that, you know, we are, you know, trying to move that forward so that would, you know, that will also be something moving forward at the same time as the local designation. It'll go as a package deal. That's our hope, to move both districts and the tax incentive to the council at the same time.
And they were very interested in the tax incentive.
Oh, yeah,
They
they
had a lot
are.
of questions about that.
Yeah.
So we can say we're responding.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing about Maria's report was, in the final report, she had reduced the number of eligible properties, mostly in Pankaki. And I think she took Davis Street, or at least part of it out, over here. And it wasn't really clear, I don't think she ever had Davis Street in, I think she thought it wasn't eligible, but it was a little confusing as to why. And when the SHPO reviewed it, they put all the properties that were taken out back in.
Right.
So if
And
you
I
go on
think
the
residents are gonna be happy to see
you'll
that.
see the little green things, which means it's eligible. Little green circles.
So is that where it stands currently?
Yes.
District?
Ethan and I had a discussion about Chapel Street, which was also surveyed. And a few other loose properties that are just kicking around, like Nathaniel Booth, and we were discussing the Masonville Farm, which is outside of the scope, but has a, you know, fairly intact 1864 farmhouse on it. That could be discussed at a later date.
But through a meeting with Kevin and subsequent conversations, and looking at Maria's report, as well as the edits by SHPO or recommendations by SHPO, we more or less confirmed the boundaries as what you see here. In Kankakee, we took another look, and there were a couple additional properties that, two of which are already on the state and national register that I can identify here, and then several others over here that were considered contributing, so those were factored in as well. So I commend Kevin for all his help with that.
Yeah, but Maria, the two at the north, that's one of them, one on the left is my house, the other one is Court's Mansion. And Maria didn't want to include them because they were already listed.
Which is kind of silly.
Yeah, they also add context to
Yeah.
Pankaki.
Right,
If you know
exactly.
The history of Pankaki, it was something of a company town for the brick company and the cement company. My house is, besides being a colonial period house, is connected to the burning in Kingston, is also, has a poured concrete rear addition. And the treasurer of the cement company lived there, who required cement, David Abbey. And Court's Mansion, of course, was the bricks, Hutton, Courts and Hutton. So, yeah, they had context.
Mhm.
Without it, you have your neighborhood, but you don't have the context. So,
And
Out of curiosity, there's two little blocks down on the south side there. Out of curiosity, why are those not considered part of that district?
those were not considered contributing properties in the AHRS report. And we did examine them more closely after SHPO responded, and Kevin and I felt that was an accurate assessment. This property right here was added because of the standing remains of a structure that was identified as the mule barn, but at a later time became a blank church. And there's more research that's warranted on that, but it was also identified as an eligible structure in the report.
the house that's on the property above the old mule barn would not be eligible. Well, it's not contributing. That's the phrase I think we should use, not contributing.
How does the story of this neighborhood feed into the cave and the mushroom business and the, the, the use of that property
That
at the
would
foot of Delaware?
Right there,
yeah,
Yeah,
the canal's property, okay.
it fits, well, it could be considered, Maria didn't want to consider a lot of the archaeological, like nominating, and she was calling them ruins.
okay.
Generally speaking, yeah, I mean, that went, whether it was in Wilbur or whether it was in McCarthy, it didn't matter, that was her methodology.
Right, well, she was looking more architectural.
Yeah, right, so that just sort of was
It-
like,
A discussion of
Yeah.
historical context in that neighborhood, I mean, that was a truly unique land use. And I don't know if it's important to be included, but I'm kind of surprised that it didn't become part of the conversation, because it's truly
There is a whole archaeological component to her report, but the state requested that to be segregated out separately.
interesting.
From the architectural. Yeah, and there's reasoning for that. It's a lot so that people don't start going around digging and doing their own little excavations. So there's a lot of privacy.
Right, and I know that
Issues.
there's the environmental issue of, yeah. Okay, interesting. Wow,
I don't even know if the state has signed off on the archaeological yet. They did on the architectural and they've been taking, I don't think they've signed off on the archaeological piece yet. We had to separate it completely. It had been blended together
yeah,
in one report.
which is kind of the norm.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, they support each other, obviously, but yeah, no, the state was pretty adamant about taking it out.
Interesting.
I don't know that there was it surprised me too, I don't recall a lot of mapping in there, that's usually what they look for, is they don't want the maps to the public, but then somehow the maps end up in a lot of the secret reviews, made public by a consultant. So,
Where does the timeline go from here after the neighborhood meetings?
Well, our timeline, how did we work this? We were going to go, I think, submit both districts for local designation to the, they would go, and I guess the temple would go to in March with the tax incentives, and that will go through the procedures.
Pretty much.
So the two districts will come before the commission in March, I think on the 7th. And then similar to the endorsement for Temple Emmanuel,
Right.
it will- all of those will then go.
Right,
to the
because these-
council.
We gotta get their signatures first, and then once we have that in place, we'll be back here and ask for your endorsement like we did with the tempo, and then we'll move that forward.
Is there any reason you said common council has to sign off
Yeah,
on this?
it goes to the council, it's just the council.
Okay.
Mhm.
Do we have to have another public hearing?
Yeah, you'll have a public hearing on
Okay. And are we gonna try and do it here or in the neighborhoods?
that. We do it here,
Okay.
yeah, it would be a meeting, a public meeting.
We haven't had one of those in quite a while. I think the last one was probably on Baker Street.
Big public hearing?
Yeah, we get the big room.
Oh, boy. We'll probably schedule it for the council chambers, I don't know what kind of crowd it will draw, but
That's why it's a public hearing. You never know.
the other thing with the two districts is that they were, for the most part, both of them were in the heritage area. Correct.
Hmm.
So they were already, those weren't binding reviews for the most part, but, except for the LWRP, that would have been binding review.
Right.
For the most, but a lot of the owners in these areas have had to come to the commission before. They came to the HLPC. You'd see them here, but they weren't here for us, they were here for, the HLPC.
Okay,
All right.
so, yes, so hopefully, we will see your faces for a couple weeks. Great.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I have a question.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna talk slowly.
Oh,
Are we back to paint chips and sign this month? Just out of curiosity.
Paint chips and.
Sign, approving. This is,
So many of those.
Yeah, under the new code, if you recall, under the new code, if everything is compliant with the new code, then doesn't come here. It's an administerial review. Same with the paint. If they use a historic palette, and we're comfortable with it at staff level, it just goes through. It does not come here. It's when they deviate,
Yeah.
or do something that we think is a little bit not appropriate for the maybe the architecture. If we're not comfortable, we'll bring it here. We have that ability, okay?
It's just been that you're not seeing you guys for the last 2 months.
Very strange. So now you can entertain a motion to adjourn.
I believe I have a motion to adjourn from Andrea. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Thank you, Robert. I hear no discussion. I'll call the roll. Andrea,
Aye.
Kevin,
Aye.
Robert, Nettie.
Aye.
Aye.